Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin tonight with breaking news. A fire prompting evacuations in East County. It started this afternoon off Star Acres Drive near Steel Canyon Road in Rancho San Diego. CAL FIRE says the flames threatened structures along Vista Cielo Lane. And KPBS reporter Katie Anastas joins us live from the scene with an update. Katie?
Maya, this fire broke out around 2 p.m. near Star Acres Lane. That's across from this hill that you see behind me. And you can see just how close the flames got to some of the homes over here. No structures were damaged, thankfully, and no injuries were reported either among residents or firefighters. Officials say that about 4,300 people were under evacuation orders or warnings. And CAL FIRE Captain Mike Cornett says those orders are still in place for now.
We are constantly reassessing the need for those orders and warnings as the hours go through. But we want to make sure that we're mitigating any hazards or any issues that might arise by the time we let the residents back in.
Now, Maya, the cause of this fire is still under investigation, but as temperatures are expected to continue to climb this week, Cornett is reminding people to try to do your outdoor yard work early in the morning before those temperatures reach their peak. And remember to keep defensible space around your home clear of brush to avoid having a place for those sparks to go. Maya?
We will be tracking some record-breaking heat across parts of the desert Southwest over the next couple of days, but here across Southern California, especially San Diego, I am tracking sunny skies with mild temperatures. Great weather overall here for both Saturday and Sunday. Can't wait for that, but I'm also tracking our next chance of rain. It's a low chance, but it will be on that extended forecast. I'll update that outlook coming up.
A packed house and a split vote today at a hearing about a controversial sand mine project in Rancho San Diego. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen joins us live from the newsroom with the latest on the proposed Cottonwood sand mine. Alex?
Hey, Maya, you know, that fire's right where that Cottonwood sand mine was supposed to take place. The vote today was split 3-3, and under the county administration's code, that means the project is denied. But it also means the developer can't appeal to the Board of Supervisors. Rancho San Diego residents were relieved that the project was rejected by the Planning Commission. Barry Jantz is with the group Stop Cottonwood Sand Mine.
We don't anticipate this is the end. We anticipate that the applicant will appeal. I think there's a 10-day or so process to appeal, and then this will be going to the Board of Supervisors within the next couple of months.
It was a packed room today with high emotions over this, a plan to turn the Cottonwood golf course into a sand mining project.
I have a medical background, and I know what the sand mine is not good for us.
Residents raised concerns about traffic, noise, and health issues related to mining operations.
I just had heart surgery because of COVID. I like to walk, but when I walk, I don't want to be smelling the sand because there's toxicity.
Developers and the building industry say they need the sand for the mine to produce aggregate for construction without a high cost.
We get contractors out there, hey, give me a quote on this new concrete. Why is it so expensive? Well, why? We know now why. Because everything's imported. Projects like this keeps that aggregate and that material in-house.
The sand mining project would last 10 years, and afterwards, the land will be donated to the county for parkland. Maya, there was confusion over whether the split vote means that the developers could appeal. The Planning Committee Staff Council is interpreting the admin code to mean that they could. The developers told me that they plan to appeal. Live in the newsroom, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Immigration raids have left many mixed-status immigrant families living on edge. Some have changed ordinary things like grocery trips and outings due to the fear of being detained. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne hears directly from two people and discusses how this fear could affect their health.
Headlines and viral videos of immigration detentions are filling news feeds. And with them, fear is rising in immigrant communities across the country. It's not just families without legal status. It's mixed status families that fear for loved ones. Like this man. For his family's safety, he asked that we not use his name. He says the fear of immigration detentions hit close to home.
Pero sí hay mucha preocupación de parte.
Yes, there's lots of worry within our family because we have a family member who unfortunately has not been able to get his documents. In this case, he's the head of household.
He has legal status and is retired, but the threat of an interaction with immigration agents could shatter his family.
Si pasa algo con esta persona,
If something is to happen to this family member, then our family would completely fall apart.
As a result, his family has had to take extra precautions.
he ido a las tiendas y he visto.
When I do the shopping, I've noticed a considerable drop in Latinos at the store compared to before.
He knows he's not alone, and many families are erring on the side of caution.
Lo que mejor deberían hacer es quedarse en su casa si no
The
tienen.
best thing to do is stay home if you have nothing to do, unless you're going to work, because we have to generate income. If not, who is going to pay the bills?
Estoy con sentimientos encontrados, con mucho miedo.
I'm filled with emotions, with lots of fear. We have to do things with precautions, even grocery shopping.
We also talked with this woman who is in the U.S. without legal status. She also asked that we not use her name due to the fears for her safety.
Me he sentido como que me ahogo, como que el estrés.
I felt like I can't breathe. The stress is hurting me. I've noticed it even in my hair. It is falling out.
She says the stress over the immigration raids is taking a toll on her health, but she feels that even doctor's appointments pose a risk. Not just physically, but financially too.
No agarramos ayudas así del gobierno porque
We don't receive government assistance for insurance. We always pay out of pocket. Out of fear that receiving assistance could hurt us later on or our information could be shared with immigration agencies.
She's been in the U.S. for over 20 years. While she has thought about self-deporting, she struggles with leaving the life she's built behind.
y no estoy lista para irme.
I'm not ready to leave yet. I wish the government could help people that have been here for so many years. We pay our taxes and try not to be a burden on the government.
So they get people and then they ask questions later, which is very unconstitutional. That's not how it works, how it's supposed to work. So people are fearful.
Eduardo Aguilar is an ethnic studies professor and community activist. He often participates in the community patrols that warn people of immigration sightings.
And the fact that they're snatching people from all categories, from being people that are undocumented, people that are in the refugees, people that are in the process, people that go to courts and they go for a legal hearing and they get snatched, or people that are walking in the street.
He says the implications of the immigration raids are instilling fear and trauma for many communities.
They're affected, and they do need support, and they do need, this is gonna be something that is gonna mark them forever because it's just trauma, and we don't talk about that stuff. All of this is going to affect people mentally, psychologically.
Lizette Ma is a family psychologist in San Diego. She says the stress of fear has a deep impact on people.
Neurologically, right, it has an effect, especially if that stress or concern or fear, it gets to a level of that it's impeding your sleep cycle or is being disturbed. You're not going to be able to perform, respond in an appropriate way or fast enough if you're constantly stressed out, worried, not sleeping, not eating.
Despite the constant stream of news, her best advice is to avoid drowning in the headlines.
That's why it's so important that we are pacing ourselves, microdosing the amount of news that we're seeing, and then just focusing one thing at a time, because it can become very overwhelming and then we handicap ourselves.
For some immigrant families, the fear of separation is a daily reality. But through community support, awareness, and care, there could be room to focus on healing and hope. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A woman who volunteered as a legal observer in immigration court ended up in detention herself. She shares her story coming up. The Environmental Protection Agency says it has reached a settlement agreement with Gateway Energy Storage. The company manages a battery storage facility that caught fire last year in Otay Mesa. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge tells what this might mean for green energy storage technologies.
The fire at Gateway Energy Storage in the South Bay burned for 2 weeks in May of 2024. Last year, in fact, 2 energy storage facilities caught fire in San Diego County. The other was an SDG&E warehouse in Escondido. The lithium-ion batteries they use are flammable, and when they burn, they also release flammable gases like hydrogen. But both fires were extinguished with no harm to nearby areas. The fire battalion chief at the Escondido fire said lithium-ion battery fires are hard to put out, so you need different tactics.
The best industry practices that all the subject matter experts have agreed on when they were out there yesterday advising is if it's in a safe area or you can make it a safe area, then you let it burn itself out.
That's what happened at both fires. Now the EPA says they have an agreement with Gateway Energy Storage. In his statement, EPA Administrator Josh Cook said, under the settlement agreement, Gateway Energy Storage must conduct environmental monitoring during all battery handling operations and safely remove, package, and dispose of all impacted battery packs. REV Renewables, the parent company of Gateway Battery Storage, responded by saying, been there, done that. They said in a statement to the San Diego Union Tribune, the practices spelled out by the EPA, quote, have been governing our work for the last several months and are not new. Battery storage centers are used to store renewable energy, mainly solar, so it can be used when the sun doesn't shine. The press release from the EPA included some statements that some people viewed as hostile toward the practice of storing solar energy at battery farms. EPA Administrator Cook also said, I am alarmed by the incidents and impacts of utility-grade battery fires on our first responders, specifically firefighters exposed to horrible toxic conditions. The broader battery storage fire issue requires additional attention and EPA enforcement, end quote. Jason Anderson with Clean Tech San Diego said the tone of those comments was inappropriately negative.
What the EPA administrator is saying as it relates to this particular project may not necessarily be about this particular project, but more about the opinions of the administration on renewable energy, green energy.
This year, Clean Tech sponsored a survey of San Diego County residents on whether they wanted battery storage facilities nearby. Anderson said 66% of people support having storage facilities in the region.
And I think more importantly, and most importantly, we found a majority, 57% of residents throughout the county support battery storage projects in their own neighborhoods.
REV Renewables, the owner of Gateway Energy Storage, said a thorough testing of all the batteries at the facility was completed earlier this year, and a subset of them are back in service following last year's fire. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a look at the daily life of people in Gaza, desperately trying to find food in the midst of war. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Starting this fall, San Diego Unified students will spend the majority of their day without their phones. The school board approved a new policy last night, which will take effect August 11th, the first day of the school year. Under the policy, phones may not be used during regular school hours defined by each school's bell schedule. High school students can use their phones during lunch and passing periods. California ordered all public schools to adopt cell phone policies by July 1st of 2026. San Diego County schools have lost tens of thousands of students over the last decade. It's part of a national trend that has forced difficult decisions in many districts. And according to some projections, it may only get worse in the coming years. In our Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego's Jacob McWhinney explains.
For many years, San Diego County's population grew steadily, and school enrollment also increased year by year. But that's no longer the case. After peaking in 2018, school enrollment has declined rapidly. There are now thousands of fewer students in local public schools than there were just 1 decade ago, about 27,000 fewer to be exact. That decline is far from just a San Diego problem. It's part of a broader statewide trend that was supercharged by the COVID pandemic, when schools lost tens of thousands of students in just a handful of years. Though the enrollment decline has slowed, the trend shows no signs of stopping. And families aren't just choosing other options. Enrollment at traditional private schools, for example, has stayed relatively flat. The number of families choosing to homeschool their kids has increased in recent years, but the increase doesn't come close to explaining the drop. Instead, the declines are driven by large issues that schools have very little control over. Put simply, there are fewer children in San Diego County than there used to be, and there are a couple reasons for that. For one, people have just been having fewer kids. The number of kids born in San Diego County has dropped by nearly 20% over the past decade. Also to blame is San Diego's rising price tag. The cost of everything from housing to utilities has increased steadily, a pattern that's likely driven many families with children from the region. And schools just can't control these factors, but the impacts on them have been massive. Of schools that were around a decade ago, about 7 in 10 have fewer students. And since school funding is partly based on enrollment, those deadlines could be a big blow to budgets. And some districts are already being hit hard. Take the South Bay Union School District, for example. They've lost nearly 30% of their students over the past decade. At a school board meeting in May, trustees voted to close the nearly 50-year-old Central Elementary. They originally wanted to close 3 of South Bay's 11 schools, but the community pushed back hard. And the pain may not stop anytime soon. California's Department of Finance projects that by 2044, enrollment at San Diego County schools will have dropped by about 112,000 additional students. Declines of that magnitude could reshape the county's educational landscape and lead to a whole lot more closed schools. For Voice of San Diego, I'm Jacob McQuinney, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. A volunteer legal observer says she was left bruised after being detained by ICE agents in San Diego's federal immigration court yesterday. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler says she's accused of pushing an ICE agent.
That was the moment an ICE agent accused Barbara Stone, a volunteer legal observer, of pushing her.
You pushed her? Oh, she pushed me.
Stone volunteers as a legal observer in San Diego's immigration court. The 71-year-old grandmother of 2 says her job is to observe and film, not to interfere.
It is necessary that we provide people who can legally observe when ICE is detaining asylum seekers in the courthouse.
Stone's lawyer, Emily Howe, says Stone serves as a legal observer and neutral volunteer who monitors and documents public interactions with government actors.
And I had my phone up in the air, and they started chasing me and saying they were going to arrest me.
Do you want to file charges? Which officer does? Sure, yes. At this point, people get kind of mad. She's over here. Hey, detain her. Yeah, where's she at? Hey, detain that lady.
The agents followed Stone down the hall and handcuffed her. She says she was put into a small room.
I was there for more than 8 hours. I asked right away if I could see an attorney.
Stone says her phone and purse were seized. After her release, only her purse was returned.
And I asked him why he needed my phone, and he compared it to a drug bust where they keep a drug dealer's phone because I had used it in the crime. They referred to me as the suspect, yeah.
Now at home, Stone has bruising on her wrists and on the back of her arm. She says it's from the handcuffs and where an agent grabbed her when she was detained. Stone says she won't let her detention stop her volunteer work.
I'm just part of a much bigger structure and organization, and whatever I can do, I want to do.
KPBS contacted Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but did not receive an immediate response. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
Forecast here as we head into tonight. I will be tracking some low clouds near the coast with overnight temperatures in the mid-60s. Pretty mild start here for your early Thursday morning. Down to 63 tonight in Oceanside. Pretty mild for this time of year. Future track radar is showing some early morning cloud coverage, but overall should start to clear out by about midday. So during the afternoon hours, lots of sunshine here across the majority of not only the San Diego metro, but also pretty much all of Southern California here as we head throughout your Thursday into your early Friday. Here's the overall setup for Thursday. Very hot air developing here across the desert Southwest. The good news is we're going to start to dry out across Ruidoso and some of those areas across New Mexico that have been dealing with the devastating flooding. Temperature-wise here for tomorrow, primarily in the 70s along the coastal areas, but along the interior, we will see lots of areas eclipsing the 100-degree mark. And then as we head into Friday, once again, high pressure dominates across the four corners. Very hot air once again in store across the region, and it is going to be a hot stretch of weather. Here's an updated look at that coast forecast, extended outlook. We'll see sunny skies, highs in the 70s here for the next couple of days. I will point out that the warmest we're going to be along the coastal areas is actually going to be on Thursday. Temperatures will trail off a little bit here, but it'll still be nice and comfortable as we head throughout the weekend. Looking at the inland forecast, once again, temperatures peak here for your Thursday afternoon. We'll go from the 90s back into the 80s. As a matter of fact, as we head into early parts of next week, we'll actually see highs in the low 80s, so temperatures will be on a little bit of a trailing pattern throughout the next couple of days. Now across the mountains, we'll actually be in the mid-80s here for your Thursday afternoon, and then after that, temperatures will start to trail off a little bit more seasonable for this time of year. Overnight lows in the 60s, but Monday morning, we'll see overnight lows in the upper 50s, so a little bit of a change there. And then across the desert, once again, temperatures just topping out here for your Thursday afternoon, and then we'll get to more moderate, more seasonable conditions here as we head throughout the weekend.
As a war expert on a CIA panel, UC San Diego political scientist Barbara Walter helped forecast civil wars in other countries. And along the way, she discovered some of those predictors apply to the United States. KPBS's Amita Sharma spoke recently with Walter, who wrote the book How Civil Wars Start and How to Stop Them, about the factors that lead to civil war.
The two big factors are, first and foremost, something we call anocracy. It's just a fancy word for partial democracy. It's countries that have elements of democracy. They have elections, people vote, but they also have elements of authoritarianism. They have a very, very powerful president, often who has very few constraints on his power. The second factor is whether the political parties in these partial democracies form mainly around race, religion, or ethnicity rather than ideology.
So how does the United States stack up against those measurements?
The United States today is definitely in this anocracy zone, this dangerous partial democracy zone. The Biden administration came in, American democracy seemed like it was on better footing for a while. But since Donald Trump has come back to the White House, our democracy has declined faster than it ever has in America's history.
You write in your book, How Civil Wars Start, that people might put up with poverty, they might put up with unemployment, bad schools, and more, but they will not tolerate losing their status. How is that playing out in the country right now?
If you look at the Republican Party, up until this last election in 2024, it was over 80% white. And that is in a country that's multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-racial. So our parties are more ethnically, religiously, racially based than would make sense if you look strictly based on ideology. On the other side of the ledger, if you look at the Democratic Party, the overwhelming majority of African Americans, a majority of Latinos, the majority of Asians, a majority of Muslims and Jews vote for the Democratic Party. That's not good for a country.
Given what you've just outlined, do you really think civil war could break out in the United States?
So I don't think it could break out in the near future. I don't think we're on a precipice. I'm not, building a bunker in my backyard.
So part of the title of your book, How Civil Wars Get Started, is also how can they be prevented? How can they be stopped?
Well, if you go back to first principles, if having a weak democracy and having your population be sort of fixated on identity rather than unity, then if you fix those two things, you're gonna be in the Denmark category. Nobody worries about a civil war in Denmark. I think the single easiest and most immediate thing that we could do, and also the cheapest for everybody except maybe a few tech moguls, is to regulate social media.
It is absolutely unfathomable for people to believe that civil war can happen here. Why is that?
It's because we love our country. I love my country. I love my neighbors. I'm so proud of living here, and I think it's human nature to deny, to try to ignore, to gloss over our worst tendencies until it's too late, until there's no possible way that we can deny it anymore.
And that was UC San Diego political scientist Barbara Walter speaking with KPBS's Amita Sharma. And you can hear more of the interview tomorrow morning on 89.5 KPBS FM. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.